Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like, to check the Jumbotron first, before attempting to eat a stack of Supreme nachos in one bite. Now you're just a meme that everyone shares on game day. Checking first is smart, so check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary, subject to terms, conditions, and availability. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates, Northbrook, Illinois.
Ampire.
Hey babies, hey babies, hey babies, hey babies. Hi everyone. Happy Thursday. What's happening, everybody? What's going on? How you doing?
Good. Packed schedule this week. After last week, we had like nothing. Now we have like everything this week, it seems.
Well, the Caps play every other day, so you got
right.
it all. Yeah,
right. We had
college.
We had a good night of college hoops last night, though. Even I will admit that one.
Yeah, we did. Well, it didn't end very well for Maryland, but we'll get to that in a bit. I saw that one live. I got to give a shout out to my friend Jesse, who I was watching this game with last night, who called it the second the guy shot it. He goes, "That's going in." Boom, went in. So I'll give him a shout out. I mean, I guess it's probably an easy thing to do, but he organically blurted out, "That's going in," and hit it. That was pretty good. So that was a pretty good one. Anyway, we'll get to Maryland in a bit. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. I know you think it's funny when they lose, so I'll give you a moment.
No, like, once again, I don't hate Maryland. I hate how complacent the fans get at times. This is one where I'm let it ride, playa. Like, I'm good. I'm kind of rooting for them as well. They look like they're actually, like, this one warrants the reaction that they're getting a little bit, is what I'm saying. That's all. Leave it there.
Let me stick to football, because that's what you all want to hear me talk about. I've been looking at my metrics. I know you all, and it's fine with me, because I'm happy to talk about the Commanders every day. I live and breathe it, so I'm happy to do it. All right, so yesterday Dan Quinn spoke. It was his turn to go at the Combine and speak to the media. I watched it. Obviously, I'm not there. I watched it. I don't think he was asked very much, actually. Like, I found this press conference odd, and I guess, well, part of it is the local people only have a few of the questions, not all of them. I think they would have asked a lot more. Nikki, Sam, Ben, the guys who were there, JP, like, I think they would have asked more of the nitty-gritty, like, local stuff had they had the opportunity. But because it's a scrum and some of the national media are going to ask things like, looking back at last year and all that stuff, we kind of lost some of the verve of it, because I would describe it as he didn't tell me anything I didn't know, but he also wasn't asked about anything that we didn't know. And more, I'm like watching this kind of materialize this year. And I'm like, not that this offseason's going to be a bust. It's not. They're going to continue building through the draft. They're going to fill out the roster. But if you thought, like, I don't think what's going to happen coming out of this is what happened to Houston a year ago. I don't think so. Where off of the crazy first season with their new quarterback, they went and got some home run hitting type players to add to their team, and everyone started asking a question in the spring, are they a Super Bowl contender? And I think with Jaden, it's like impossible not to feel that way, but I don't think they're going to do things to the roster. They're going to make people feel that way, which leads me back to this one. It was asked, I thought Sam Fortier asked this in the Washington Post, and I thought it was a good question to ask. Because the majority of the players that they brought in a year ago, notable exceptions, Dortz Armstrong, Tyler Biotish, Frankie Louvu, Austin Eckler's on a 2-year deal, but a very affordable 2-year deal. All the rest of them, this is why they have 28 free agents. All of them are on 1-year deals. All of them. All these guys they brought in, all 1-year deals. So he asked the question, are you going to do that again? Essentially run it back with, can we just bring people back for 1 year? Because we've talked about this a lot. If you go and look at the free agent market that's available to them, it's not a bunch of players you would sign to a lot of multi-year deals. So run it back's the wrong way to put it. But I think we're heading in that similar direction right now. If you really kind of look at the landscape, look at their options, think about, like, are they really going to sign Zach Ertz to a multi-year deal? Are they really going to sign Bobby Wagner to a multi-year deal? Like, who on the open market, there's probably a receiver or two that they might, like, if they like Darius Slayton, would they sign him to a 3-year deal? Something like that. Like, I could see that type of stuff happening. but I don't know that we're not having this conversation again next year. If you kind of look at it and go, they got 20 to 25 free agents again. That's what it feels like is happening.
No, I would even say it's about the plan. I think it's about the market dictates that. Like, as you said, the positions aren't these crazy. There aren't all these like big names. Like last year, there were 3 big running backs available, right? And they all got signed up by different teams. In previous years, we've seen, oh, this is the main free agent that's not getting franchise tagged. He's going to get a big deal. We're not talking about that player this offseason. We're not talking about, I don't think you ever talk about a franchise changing player because they always get re-signed, but a player that puts you over the top. The guy that is this offseason is Myles Garrett, and we don't even know if he's actually going to get traded either. Like, in terms of him, then to the next free agent, and I'm talking any position, it's a huge drop-off. So why would they give out anything more than a 1 or maybe a 2-year deal or a 1-year deal with an option or something like that? So I also think this is the market dictating how their roster is too. They don't have all of these guys that can go sign and reshape the roster right away either.
Right. I mean, like, so, and then I was like looking at the free agents. They got 28 of them. And Adam Peters said this the other day during his press conference. He goes, there's a lot of like, he described it as like, it's misleading when you read about cap room. He goes, we're really on a cash budget, which is basically saying, this is what the owners have told us we can spend up front for players to make things happen. And then secondarily, and I've just kind of pointed this out a lot, 28 free agents, when you say they have 80 million in cap room, they really don't. They need to fill out a roster. Like, that's half the roster. More than half the roster needs to be signed. They're all not being signed to minimum deals. If it was all minimum deals, that would only be 28 million. It's not. So they don't have this amount of room that people are talking about, or they're perceiving that they could literally go get anybody. That's not the case. They have to fill out their roster first. And if they, let's just say they re-sign Bobby Wagner, because I assume they want to, and they're going to, that's at minimum $6 to $10 million next year that goes off the board to get him to come back here, because he will get offered that somewhere else if they don't. They're not getting it. I don't think he'd play on a minimum deal. Like, they're not going to get him for that. If Ertz were to come back, he's not playing for $1 million if they want to re-sign him. So you have to remember that part. 28 players haven't been re-signed. Even Tress Way is going to get a market deal for a punter when they bring him back. They don't have a kicker right now. Like, there's a lot of things that need to occur before they can actually go hit the market. And, you know, like, it's interesting too, like, if you go through their free agents, because I was looking at that again this morning, name the players of the people that they're going to bring back, because they got to bring back a number of them, and they already signaled they're going to do it because they have to, of who you would actually give multi-year deals to. Like, I think Bobby Wagner is year to year. I think he is. Marcus Mariota is an interesting one. Like, I know they want to bring him back. I'm sure he'd like to go on the market and just see, is there somebody out there that saw what he did here and think, okay, like, let's let him compete. He's not going to be a starter here. Let's let him compete to be a starter, and then give him a contract that Washington can't afford to pay him any longer. Right. But, like, maybe he wants to be here. Maybe he doesn't. I don't know. Like, who knows? He probably wants to check the market out. And if they don't re-sign him, they have to get another backup quarterback. But like, let's just say they do re-sign him, though. That's probably year to year, right? Like, he's over 30 now. Like, they're not re-signing him to some long-term deal. Jeremy Chin stands out as one of them that I think, of the players they signed a year ago that they took a chance on and got a 1-year deal, he's the one that stands out to me that I think they go to him for a multi-year deal, right? Like, he's the one.
I think on defense, yeah, he's the only one that I would give a multi-year deal. The only other one I would say about Wagner is, can you give Wagner a 2-year deal and give him money up front this year? Like, I think that's one where maybe you consider that, but, like,
sure,
that's very, very, like, small potatoes.
It's a 2-year deal, though. Yeah, it's not anything beyond that.
Right,
like, he's in his mid-30s. He's obviously a Hall of Famer, and he obviously was instrumental for this team. But there's a limit to how much you're going to give him because of how much you can expect him to give you on the field moving forward. Like, I love him in the locker room. He could be in the front office or the coaching staff if he wants to be down the road, but we need him to play right now.
Yeah. As far as Chin goes, I'm with you. I think Chin does deserve a multi-year deal, but I will say, this coaching staff, or not coaching staff, but this front office has been very smart, and, like, they read the markets too. What did we see last year? The safety market, the bubble burst. There were so many good safeties available last year. Do I think they go after a safety this year? I don't know, but I also know that that won't break the bank if they're giving him a multi-year deal anyways, because they're going to go, these all pros and these best safeties in the league are not even getting this big money. And they very might well say, this is what we think it is. And maybe he doesn't agree to that. I don't think that'll be the case, but I don't think that's a big deal anyways. Like, that's the only guy. And I don't think it's a big deal regardless.
Here are the other names. KJ Osborne, who came in late after he was cut by New England. I didn't play very much, so I assume he's not going to be back. Cleveland Farrell is one of the many defensive linemen that were brought in on a one-year deal. He fought through a knee injury and was not particularly impactful. So I think potentially that's an upgrade. I suppose they could bring him back. But again, that would just be year to year if they did bring him back. Tressway, I think they should. I can't believe he's 34 now, but I think they should re-sign him. I mean, he's still at a Pro Bowl level, so I assume they're going to re-sign him. Dante Fowler's an interesting one. He's on the other side of 30. What does his market look like after a double-digit sack year? Does he just want to come back here because he likes playing here? That, to me, is also a one-year deal. Could they find somebody that plays more snaps than him and use him more situationally? Sure. I'm happy to have him back, but again, to the point of who are you signing to multi-year deals, I don't see many of them on the roster right now that are their free agents. Michael Davis, I assume, won't be back. Zach Ertz, if he is probably a one-year deal. Cornelius Lucas, if he is probably a one-year deal. Michael Dieter, probably not. Trent Scott, if he is over 30, one-year deal. Jamison Crowder, I doubt he's back, but if he is, one-year deal. Noah Igbenogany, there's another one I would at least semi-argue, but if Dan Quinn was asked yesterday about positional flex with people like Sandristil and Coleman, and neither one of those guys were earmarked for the positions that they're in right now. Sandristil was moved to outside corner out of necessity. They said a million times they want him in the slot. Brandon Coleman was the left tackle. I think we all know could play a different position on the line, whether it's right tackle or guard, but they have to have a better option than him. He's a keeper, and he's a player, and he's a starter. It's just where, but they have a better option than him. But Igbenogany, let's just say you think they should re-sign him. Well, if Sandristil is your starting slot corner, are you signing him to more than a one-year deal? I don't think you are. Would you bring him back for depth? Yes, of course. But are you if he's your starting slot corner, you sign him to a 3-year deal? Well, if Sandristil's earmarked to be the slot corner, why would you do that?
Right. No, exactly right. And I think that was kind of the interesting thing both of them had to answer over the last 2 days of those two players, mainly Sandristil and Coleman, of, oh, where are they? And it was, we really like them. Like, they didn't really even answer the question of where they're supposed to be, that we really like them.
We really like them. That's how I feel about them too. Sandristil, I think, a stud in the making, wherever he's going to be. Coleman, I described it as he's a total keeper, and I actually think he's like Cosme. I think you can move him around and find his spot. And my gut says it's going to be right tackle or left guard. That's what I think is going to happen. But I don't know yet. He's too young in his career. I know he's a starter for them. I just don't know that he's a long-term starter at left tackle. And they're basically saying the same thing.
So both of those guys, though, I think it will be kind of interesting to see how they approach free agency, to see what they can get. Like, maybe they're saying, okay, we can sign a slot corner or an outside corner, and Mikey can move to wherever we think he can move. Or same thing, I said this about the linemen. They're going to have to just sign the best players they think they are and figure out the combination on the fly. This brings back the old Ron Rivera position flex. If you remember that conversation 2 or 3 years ago, they really are actually going in that direction a little bit with some of these guys.
That was one of the drinking game buzzwords. Catch radius. Remember catch radius? That became a thing for a while. And then our personal favorite, guys, which was by far my personal Ron favorite, when he got really frustrated and went guys. That was my favorite.
I still use interesting and important once a week.
That was a good one.
Interesting and important it's actually a really good one.
That is a good one. Here's the rest of them. I'll just go through them quickly. Benjamin St. Juste, I think there'd be a revolt of the fan base if they brought him back, honestly. I actually think he's a good guy. He's a pretty good player. He's just quite not good enough. That's all it is. It's not for a lack of effort, or he's just like, welcome to the NFL. Some guys are better than you. And that's just unfortunate, I think, is where we are with him. So they'll move on because he's a free agent. Olamide Zaccheaus, I've been arguing I would bring back. But again, on a one-year deal, he doesn't make a lot of money. He's only 27. He really fits in culturally with the team. He could play a bunch of roles. Bring him back, I think. But again, not a long-term deal. De'Ami Brown's an interesting one. I don't know what's going to happen with him. I think that may partially come down. My gut says he's leaving because I actually think he's going to get probably a little more money on the open market than he will here. And the fact that it took him so long to emerge under this staff was kind of telling to me. That said, he was a big-time playmaker for them at the end of the season. And again, this is a position group that's going to look very, very different, if not next year, at least in 2 years. Like, this is going to be a very, very, very different-looking group when we get around to the end result of whatever they end up building with it. Noah Brown, to me, comes down to, is he healthy enough? Because he had internal injuries. If he is, to me, that's just, again, a one-year deal. It's not a multi-year deal. Nick Bellor's 35, special teamer. If they bring him back, they bring him back. Sheldon Day is 30. They liked him. It's a one-year deal, though. Jeff Driscoll might be their backup quarterback if Mariota leaves, but again, a one-year deal. Jeremy McNichols, they loved him. It's a one-year deal, though, unless they upgrade at running back, which I think some people think might happen. Like, if they use a high draft pick, like a second-round pick on a running back, then McNichols will probably be the odd man out because it'll be B-Rob, Eckler, and whoever this rookie that comes in is. That's probably what that would be. Michael Walker was very good on special teams, but again, one-year deal as a backup linebacker. They don't have a kicker. Seibert and Gonzalez are both free agents. We'll have to see where they go there. Jalen Holmes, again, one-year deal if you bring him back. Derek Forrest didn't play very much. He's a free agent. I was a little surprised by that. I'm assuming he's going somewhere else. Chris Rodriguez, I assume, is going somewhere else. And the only other one that you could argue might be a multi-year deal is John Bates. That one's interesting. I think they need to make a decision about that. I think he's a very good inline blocker. I think that's an underrated part of this. I don't think it'll cost them a lot of money. He's the one I would go give 2-3 years to and bring him back.
Yeah, but what's crazy is when started going through this list again after I think it was like Zacchaeus. This is like the pits of the roster. Like, we're talking about backups of backups here too. Like, it's not even.
But you have to fill this stuff out.
Like, no, of course.
You have to fill this stuff out.
No, of course. That's what I'm getting at with people that think that they're going to make all these home run hits. Like, they need to basically build the roster up again. To your point on John Bates too, I would hope you bring him back because he's also got steady hands. Like, every time the ball went his way, the few times it did, he was pretty clutch. He'd go right down and he'd catch it, whatever. But like, looking at the depth of this team, this is why I continually have said too, I'd love to trade for Myles Garrett, but at the same time, they need depth to fill out this team to just keep it moving going forward. They need guys that are going to be here for multiple years. I think it goes without saying, Ron's last draft class might have been one of the worst draft classes ever. I don't know about any team, but ever. None of those guys are around except for maybe one of them. If I'm remembering correctly from that draft class. But both offensive linemen were cut right away. I'm trying to even remember who Forbes was the first round pick, right? If I'm remembering correctly.
First round pick.
He was gone.
Released.
Yeah. Both linemen never got a snap. Like, I'm trying to remember who else was on that list, but
yeah, Braden Daniels never played.
Right. Yeah. It was terrible. So I'm just saying, like, the depth that would normally be here of just guys that are pros doesn't exist. They cut them all. They're all gone. So yeah, I think like that's why I've been saying they got to, hold on to these draft picks a little bit.
Yeah. Here's the other thing that is really telling if you go and actually look at their roster. So it's 2025, playa. Okay. People who are under contract to at least 2028 is the draft class they just got a year ago because they're on rookie contracts, and Sam Cosmi.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the list. So they've extended one player from the previous regime. I have a feeling they're going to do it with McLaurin. I think they're going to do it with McLaurin. They have a number of guys from previous draft classes that are carryovers, B-Rob namely, that they have to think about. What are they going to do with someone like that? I'll go back to my previous, I was surprised how his season turned towards the end of the season. And I wouldn't be surprised if Washington is looking for a rookie running back in the draft, maybe in the as high as the second or third round, because there are some really good ones outside of Ashton Genty, who I don't think they'll be picking high enough to get, that will be available. And so I wouldn't be shocked if a second round or third round pick gets picked, especially if more and more and more as you go through this, the reasoning to trade back into the second round out of that first round pick to garner more picks if someone sees something they really like at 29 is making more and more and more sense to me. Peters says over and over and over, I want to build through the draft. They have 7 picks. They could end up getting more. They say this draft is better from rounds 2 through 4. I've been talking about, I don't see a lot of high-end talent. The first, I actually feel bad for the teams picking in the top 10 this year because you're either taking a shot on a quarterback who no one thinks is Jaden Daniels or Caleb Williams or Drake May this year, or if you're lucky enough to get Travis Hunter that looks like he's going to be really good, or a couple of select others, you're guessing. You are really, really, really guessing this year. I just saw Abdul Carter's having surgery. So all of a sudden, that puts the number 1 overall pick in question. Tennessee, all of them. This is one of those years. This happens. Last year, it was easy. This year, it's not. The whole top 10 was easy. Not just the quarterbacks pick. Marvin Harrison was the easiest pick of all time for Arizona to make. Joe Alt was an obvious, he's going to be a Pro Bowler. There were can't miss players littered up and down, really through the top 15 of the draft. Not this time. There's going to be some real big time. I'm not trying to project out people are going to bust, but there are. This screams somebody in the top 15 has a pick. They just have to take it, and it's not going to be someone who's worthy of that level of pick at all.
I think Adam Schefter, he was on with McAfee, and he basically said after pick 10, the level of talent is basically the same from 10 to 40-ish, and then the drop off. Yeah, the drop off isn't even bad from 40 to 80. He was like it's so the tier drops off. And then it's basically just whatever you need for the next 30 to 40 to 50 to 60 picks is going to be about the same here. And we've seen this before too. This is the old NBA thing where, you're like, oh, you're tanking? Well, who are you getting for the first pick this year? And it's between 3 guys that aren't going to be good. That's what this year's NFL draft is.
And if you first round picks have a 5th-year option attached to their contract, second round picks do not. If you are one of those organizations that really, I think everybody should value. I mean, more so, the ones that are unwilling to spend a lot, the ones that want to tie up players as long as possible. If I'm Adam Peters, I am open for business at 29, even if my quote-unquote guy is there. Because if someone wants to come along and move up from 33 just to get that extra year to move me back, to give me another pick, I am taking it. And I mean, almost to the point of where I don't even care who it is that's available at 29, because I think we need more. It's all more and more and more. The more I look at it, I think patience is the wrong word here for this, because I think with Jaden Daniels, they're capable of anything, right? They are, because they have one of these players that looks like is going to put them in position to be very competitive no matter who's out there with them. But if you're being realistic, looking at their options in free agency, seeing the draft that's in front of them, I trust this group. They had a very good draft last year. I trust this group that they're going to end up getting good players in here. I really think, and this goes to the people who go, you don't want to attack winning. You can only do what your options are. That's all you can do. And unless they're going to shock us with a couple of trades for big-time players, and I don't even know how they would pull this off without giving up the draft picks that they value, right? Unless they have a couple of big-time, out-of-nowhere shocker moves that really alter the roster, we are 2 more off seasons away from, I think, looking at this roster and going, okay, this is what Quinn and Peters wanted. Now let's see what they can do with it. Because the roster they inherited, they have shredded. They re-baselined it. They're going to have to re-baseline it again because there's not a lot of options to lock people into contracts. And there's very, very few players on this team that have any term at all on their Cosme's the only one. Cosme and Daniels, they're the only ones that have any term. In 2 years, this roster again could look very different from the one from a year ago and even this year, honestly.
You said they shredded the roster. The roster was put through the shredder and then they arrived is honestly what happened. I mean, they arrived to the roster in shambles. That's what last year was, right? And I would say this too. Last year, they gave everybody that was on the previous regime a chance, right? Like they traded Dotson at the end of, or, in the middle of preseason. They gave Jamin Davis and Emmanuel Forbes some time. It didn't work out. That's what I started to actually really get worried, though, about the depth of this team, that even the former first-round picks were off the team by the midway point, right? And that was them evaluating talent, which is exactly what they should do. I'm with you. This will take probably 2 more years of revamping. Yes. And I told you, I was first on that trade back train because I'm looking at the pick going, they don't want that 5th-year option with whoever's going to be there. They'd rather build up the depth here. And if the same thing is with the 11th pick than the 50th pick, I trust Adam Peters is just going to find 100%. Find the right players to fill out this roster at this moment in time. I think what I keep saying too is be realistic about where they're at. Yes, they made it to the NFC Championship game, but do not think, though, they should go the old Dan Snyder way of signing the top guy in free agency to a 5-year, $100 million deal just because they should do that. You have to be realistic about what Adam Peters is going to do here, and he wants to build through the draft, is what he's always said.
And they want to bring in people they think will help them win. And I think if they were hopefully another offseason away next year after, this Myles Garrett thing's a no-brainer to go hardcore at, which is why, like, when you heard the reporting, Philadelphia will go out of its way to make sure he doesn't come here because they can.
Right.
Because they can. We can't give up 3 first-round picks for him because he's just one player and we need 12.
That's right.
They don't. They don't need anybody. So, like, they can F them picks right now to try to maintain what could be, the best roster in at least the NFC, if not the NFL. Frankly, I think it's the best roster I've seen top to bottom in a long time, really. And in the salary cap era, this is very hard to do what they've done. They've done a really good job. We can't do that. Don't fall prey to that. We'll just beat their offer and give them whatever they want. Okay, so we're not going to have a first-round pick for 3 years when we need a linebacker, a corner, 3 defensive linemen, 3 wide receivers, a tight end. Like, what are you talking about? Like, we offensive linemen, like, we're not where they are. We can't do that. If we could get the right thing for him, awesome, but it's not going to happen, and we can't overpay. And Peters knows this. Like, Peters knows this.
Yeah, no, exactly right. And that's why, once again, I'm glad adults are running the show this time around because I trust what they're going to do. Like, if they were to go ahead and make that trade for Myles Garrett, that would tell me that Adam Peters does have some kind of plan moving forward, or he thinks he could sign away the roster instead of drafting guys this year. I'm trusting whatever he does, but my guess is the cooler head's going to prevail here. They're going to build through the draft over the next 2 years.
Or he's saying between the draft and Myles Garrett, we're going to have a top 10 defense. And if we have a top 10 defense, we're going to tell this kid who plays quarterback, you're going to have to be Superman again. But guess what? Your defense is going to be better. You might not have to score as much.
That's right. Did you see? Did you happen to see, by the way, just off of Jaden, did you see the Warren Sharp thread yesterday about the tush push and our 4th down offense? Did you happen to see that whole entire thread yesterday?
No.
Oh my God, it's incredible. I'll run it. I'll give you the Cliff Notes version here. The stat. The Commanders were 87% on 4th down last year, best 4th down offense in the league. The number 1 play in the NFL that was 90% was a quarterback sneak on 4th and short. It was 90%. It was the number 1 play of the entire league to convert on 4th down. The Commanders did not run a quarterback sneak or a tush push the entire season on 4th down. They were the only team not to do that. Every single time they gave the ball either to run the ball with Jaden Daniels or he passed it. Basically, Warren Sharp's breakdown yesterday of Jaden Daniels was so damn good, they didn't even have to quarterback sneak him or risk it. And all these teams are bitching about the QB sneak. He basically said there's only 2 quarterbacks that converted as much as he did on 4th down, and it was Peyton Manning and Kurt Warner, who are 2 future Hall of Famers. So I'm just saying, too, like, people are still digging into stats that we've never seen before with this quarterback. They had the best 4th down offense, and they didn't quarterback sneak once last year. I'm just saying, it's incredible what the offense was last year for people to be reminded of what they did with so little is what I'm getting at.
They trusted him so much. They typically called pass plays, and they said, if it's not there, just go run and get it, and he did.
Exactly.
And numerous times he made fools of Pro Bowl defensive linemen who got in the backfield. I mean, that was he was astounding. He just, the farther I get away from it, the more I'm like, that was just beyond incredible. It really was.
The other amazing thing is, and I'm not too much into the analytics, I'm not going to like Al Galdi here, but EPA, right? Like the estimated point, whatever. And the fourth down offense, EPA was like 55 point something, and it was good for 10th in the NFL against everyone's snaps for the entire season. The fourth down offense alone was top 10. Like that's, as we get further away from the season, even like you just said, I'm being amazed by it, but go look up that thread from Sharp because I was like, what? Like it's way better than I even thought it was.
A lot of it was just trusting Jaden. Maybe the best one was the last game against Dallas when Mariota did the zone read and ran on a fourth down and fooled them. And remember, there was the second time this year that there was a player on defense who thought the play was over before it was over and then realized it, had to chase him down. All right, let me take a quick break. Bram wants to show ESPN 630 Sports Capital.
Your data is like gold to hackers. They're selling your passwords, bank details, and private messages. McAfee helps stop them. Secure VPN keeps your online activity private. AI-powered text scam detector spots phishing attempts instantly. And with award-winning antivirus, you get top-tier hacker protection. Plus, you'll get up to $2 million in identity theft coverage, all for just $39.99 for your first year. Visit McAfee.com. Cancel anytime. Terms apply.
Hey, welcome back. There are rule changes coming. Troy Vincent, who's part of the NFL, talked about the ones that are coming. Looks like overtime in the postseason, which is different than in the regular season. If you score a touchdown in the regular season, only 10 minutes on the clock. If you score a touchdown in the regular season, it's over. The other team doesn't touch the ball. But in the postseason, because of that classic Bills-Chiefs game a few years ago that everybody felt like didn't end right because the Bills never touched the ball, because that was the old rule. If you score a touchdown, they've changed it so both teams get the ball no matter what. It sounds like that's coming here. That means they would extend overtime to at least 15 minutes. I would argue this because I just think ties are ridiculous in the NFL. I think they should get rid of the clock, or have it just count up so that you could have a statistical marker of this is when the score happened in overtime, to say it was 7 minutes, 38 seconds into overtime when they kicked the field goal that won the game. I think they could remove ties here. The object is to produce a winner by giving both teams the ball, especially with a 10-minute clock. We've seen a lot of these games get run all the way down, and then, so teams try to protect against losing, and it gives the opportunity for more of a tie. I don't like that play. I would rather teams be aggressive and constantly know that the clock isn't a part of this. So I'd take the clock out and just say, the winner will go by the rules. If both teams touch the ball, whatever. So this, I think, would remove this idea of there's a clock that you're playing with at the same time, if that's the way you want to go.
No, I mean, I think the prime example of what you just talked about was, remember the Commanders Falcons game, right? Like Zach Ertz scored the touchdown to dagger them, but there was only 2 minutes and change left in that overtime period when they got the ball. So had you kicked the field goal, you're giving the ball to a rookie in Michael Penix, and he only has 2 minutes to go, get them in field goal position. You're at a clear advantage. I'm with you. Just get rid of the clock here on these overtimes.
Nobody wants a tie in football. Nobody wants it. Hockey got rid of ties a long time ago. Nobody's upset about it.
No, and the other side of that too is, you aren't saying it, but you're going the college route. You're giving both teams a chance on offense. It's not the same kind of chaos that college football has turned into, where it's an overtime period each time each one gets a possession. But you are kind of going that route now where each team gets a chance. I'm with you. Just get rid of the clock on that one as well.
Let's see. The chain gang is officially going to go away. They will be out there for visual purposes and as what they're calling a backup. But they started doing this last year, and they did it in the preseason, and they alerted us, hey, so for the purpose of your broadcast, you have, an eye in the sky type, whatever, like what tennis uses to do the lines, and we're going to utilize that. I think what they need to do is figure out how to message because at home on TV, you'll be able to tell immediately, but in the stadium, on every close, he got it or didn't get it, they're going to need to message this in the stadium, whether he got it or not. I do think it's interesting that the technology is going to be used to mark first downs, but the humans are still going to spot the ball. So They have the tracking technology. Why don't they track where the ball actually is when the whistle was blown? It doesn't seem like it would be that hard, but I'm not someone who thinks we should remove all human error out of games. Like, I see what they're doing in baseball right now. It is like an obvious progression that if it's an obvious call that like should have been a strike or should have been a ball, that you can actually challenge it. And I'm okay with that type of stuff, like, because the egregious ones should get taken out of the game. But I do like human error. Like, I want umpires to make safer out calls. I want them to make strike calls. And I want referees to spot the ball. Like, and so there's a part of me that goes, we're in the middle road here. You're going to have the line judge still spot a ball, but you're going to have technology tell you whether that spot was good enough. It's interesting. It's weird.
Yeah, I mean, I think for your message, especially someone that goes to all the home games, I think they need to do a tennis style, like, you know,
show it
here's a zoom
on the big screen.
Here's a zoom in of the ball with the chip or whatever they use for the technology, and here's where the line was, here's where the ball went, and that's it. Like, the thing with that you just mentioned with baseball, I've talked about it on my show a little bit. I wanted to see what baseball looked like. It's been great so far. It takes 10 seconds, not even 10 seconds for them to go. They tap their head, challenge. The ump says there's a challenge real quick. The replay shows it. Everybody sees it in real time. They go right back to the at bat or the strikeout, whatever it is. Make it fast. Like, that's where my gripe always lies with the NFL and why everyone thinks that there's, you know, collusion for the Chiefs and all this other crap, that the calls take so long that it's like, oh, well, we're talking about it. Don't talk about it. Just show us and then make the call. That's where I'm at it with it.
Yeah. Onside kick is coming up again. I did not feel like there was anything that he said, Troy Vincent, that suggested they're going to go to what I think a lot of people want to see them do, which is run a tough to convert offensive play at a certain yard line. Like, pick the number, 4th and 10, 4th and 12, 4th and 15. If you really want to, I think that gets a little really hard to convert it, but like, it should be hard. But I would prefer, not only just for health and safety, but like, wouldn't you prefer if the Chiefs are going to get the ball back, Mahomes has to make the play? I'd rather see that anyway. With the game on the line, I'd rather have the stars, the offense, the defense out there for this one big play. It doesn't sound like there's a lot of interest in doing that, but they're talking about tweaking it again. Right now, the rule is you can't do an onside kick until the fourth quarter, and there's no such thing as a surprise onside kick. You have to announce it before you do it. As for the dynamic kickoff, he seemed happy with that. I think the owner seemed happy with that. So there might be a couple of tweaks to where the ball goes off of touchbacks or landing zone stuff or all that. But it sounds like that's here to stay. So if you didn't like how that looked or that setup, you're not going to be happy. I don't think that's going anywhere. But that's where we are with kickoffs. I would argue that on the onside kick thing, I do prefer the put the ball at the 35, 40-yard line on your side of the field. You got one offensive play. If you convert a 4th and whatever, you get the ball. Like, you get to go from there. If you don't, the other team gets the ball, period. And I think it's better than an onside kick. Those outcomes are terrible. It's an anomaly. It's not really part of the game. It's kind of a quirk. I would rather put the ball in Jaden's hands up against Dallas's defense. Let's see what happens on this one play to see if the game continues.
Yeah, I mean, I do think you need to make it even harder than 4th and 10. Like, it needs to be a 4th and 12, 4th and 13, something like that. Because I just think that the offense is so heavily skewed. It's to their favor in today's NFL. Like, can't just be 10 yards. I think if it was 10 yards, you'd have teams trying to run up the score. Like, I think this team here would be like, yeah, we only have to get 10 yards. We're going to go ahead and like do that in the first half. So I'll say you need to make it a little bit tougher, I think.
Maybe the conversion rate of 3rd and 10 and longer is very low. Like, just the analytics, like it like if you are converting more than 25% of those, you're doing really, really well. So 3 and 4 don't make it. So it's a low percentage. And if you go even beyond it, it is. So I think it'd be a risky team doing something like that. Like, that's where we'd start going, are you that's Dan Campbell crazy? Yeah. Are you crazy that you're doing that?
What I would say, though, is you're getting a possession in exchange. So, like, I don't know if that juice is, you know, like, worth a squeeze enough. and you're going to get teams like the Chiefs that are going to design plays to get that 10 yards.
100%. Like, but you know what? Like, right now, you can't do an onside kick to the fourth quarter. If they turned it into an offensive play, I would say, open it up to the full game. So let's say you're off to a bad start and you're down 14-0. Like, the other team got the ball first, they scored, you threw a pick six, it's 14-0. You go down the field and kick a field goal, it's 14-3. See, I'd want to think about doing that play, you know, like just like, let's try to flip this game around fast and still try to dig out of the hole. And I think the fans would appreciate that if given the opportunity to do it, but not via onside kick with offenses and defenses. I know a lot of other people talked about this. I just will for a moment. I actually think that the grading stuff, it shouldn't say grading, Drew. The grading the grading curve. It's supposed to see curve. I don't know how I wrote D. If you're watching this on YouTube, that is so stupid. The grading Drew.
Droovon. The Droovon.
The Droovon. No, that's supposed to say curve. I don't even know how that ended up that way. Anyway, the grading curve is up in Ashburn, which I also think ought to tell you, like, how year to year, like this is from the NFLPA thing. Last year, the last couple of years, the Commanders got slammed by their own players in this report where they basically grade everything. Coaching, the weight room, the locker room, the facilities, how their families are treated, the diet that they're fed with, the food, the quality of the food. Like, it's all the things. It's just being a football player. And a lot of the things you don't even really think about. Like, do they have babysitting for the players on game day? You know, what are the meals like in the room? And this year, they have this incredible chef. His name is Connor. And Connor was actually profiled in the Washington Post last year. And they did a really smart thing. They fed all the media through Connor's food every Thursday. I don't know if they'll do it again, but they did it last year. And like everybody showed up on Thursday and waited around because Connor's food was, he's a chef. The food was amazing, and it was like a potpourri, like the best buffet you've ever had. Every single thing. It was the best lunch I had. Every single Thursday, we'd go out there and get this thing. So that was obviously done purposefully. I think to show the media, the team is being fed really well here. This is what you're seeing one day a week. This is what they're getting every day. And I'll give the Commanders credit because the grades changed dramatically. But the one that really, really, really stood out, because I know how much money they've put into all this stuff to upgrade all the facilities and all this stuff, was Dan Quinn got an A+ from the players for being the head coach. So anybody who's left, and I don't know who that would be, a holdout of a year ago going, they picked the wrong guy. They did not. They did not. The players, they were not shy to say, we still don't like the weight room and we still don't like the locker room. And I think a lot of that has to do with size and facilities. But when it comes to Quinn, because they went from a C with the head coach to an A+, they told you everything you need to know about how they feel about this guy.
Yeah, the Dan Quinn thing, I wasn't surprised, but I think he was number one in the NFL in terms of the out of 10 rating, because it was 0 through 10 with decimals. So they put the average up, and he was number one far and away. Worth noting, though, the only thing that was good under Rivera that was A+ was the weight training, and that was still like an A+ or whatever. So it's funny,
that didn't change under Quinn. They brought back Chad. They brought back the strength and conditioning coach.
So it's funny, like the actual weight room had lower ratings, but the training was fine. So like I do think that's like
the weight room is small. Like they have I talked about this last year. There's a few things about the size of their facilities that there's kind of nothing they can do about it, really.
There's a couple things overarching that I'll unpack just because I did page through it real quick during my show yesterday. One, on the Commanders, I remember they were complaining about the family treatment stuff. They went from like an F to an A on that one, which I'm not surprised that Josh Harris took care of that because he met with the players last year, right? And then going into some of the other teams, did you read what the Patriots had to say about their team travel? Did you read that one at all? No. So the Patriots got really bad grades all across the board, by the way, like D on the ownership, by the way, for them. But
wow.
Yeah, like they but the funniest thing for them was their biggest complaint was the team plane. They were like, this thing's never been updated. There are ashtrays on the armrest. Like, I can't remember the last time I've seen an ashtray in an armrest, dude. Like, I forgot that existed. So we're talking like plane from the 90s that hasn't been upgraded. That was a really funny one. And then there's one that's just like not shocking, but you had to like talk about it a little bit. The Bengals only feed their players one time a day. Yeah, they don't put like how. I'm glad they put this out there during Combine Week, because I'm sure other organizations are looking at other organizations going, really? You only feed your players one time, in the entire time that they're there for the day? So, yeah, there are some little ones that are just kind of hilarious. But the ashtrays on the Patriots plane sent me yesterday. I was laughing about it.
The Jets gave Woody Johnson an F.
Is that Woody or his kids, or is it both? Because I think that's what it is. Yeah,
ownership.
Yeah.
They gave all of it. They gave it an F. Not surprised they gave it an F because he intervened in ways that he shouldn't have a year ago. The interesting part was, and again, this is why year to year, like I don't think you can read too much into some of this stuff. They gave him a B a year ago.
Yeah.
So he signed Rodgers. They gave him a B. He screwed the whole thing up by intervening way too much. They gave him an F. It was deserved. Right. But next year, if they fix it, they'll give him a B again, is what they'll end up doing. All right, couple quick things before we go. Oh, man. The Terps got beat at the buzzer. Oh, so there's so much here, too. Why the guy took the shot with 5 seconds on the clock and not run it down to be a last shot seems to be age-old sports wisdom that did not get through to him. They got a rebound with about 12 seconds to go. I would have argued call a timeout. They didn't. They played it out. One of the players took a long three. Not a bad look. Took a long three, but there were 5 seconds on the clock when he took it. And Michigan State, whoever got that rebound, got the ball in the right guy's hands immediately. That's an Izzo team. They knew what they were doing, exactly what they were doing at the moment. And the dude hit a miracle. It was pretty wild. Incredible, incredible play. And oh man, let's see how Maryland recovers from it, because they were one of the hottest teams in the country coming into that game last night. Let's see if they can get over it.
Not only did he shoot the three up with like 4 or 5 seconds left, it was my pet peeve. It was a tie game. Drive to the basket. Try to get fouled. Like, that's always my pet peeve at the end of games there. Don't take the three. And that was a deep three as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, you hope that moments like that if they have a moment in the tournament, they don't shoot themselves in the foot like they did right there. Not to say, though, and take away from Michigan State, that's a miracle shot, and they hit it. So you have to give them their kudos on it.
Yeah,
Maryland did open the door for it.
Let's see if they can come back from it. All right, Caps homestand continues tonight. They get St. Louis at home. I'm assuming, just because of how this team's played this year, that was a real clunker the other night against Calgary. It's a very rare clunker from them. I bet they come out and they play with a lot of different, I think there's going to be a lot of energy early in this game. And I would assume that they're going to win against a team that right now wouldn't be in the playoffs.
Yeah, this is a bounce back game. It's got written all over it. I just want to remind people, Jordan Binnington, who played for Team Canada, is the Blues goaltender. Binnington is the definition of mid. Don't expect that he's going to be amazing tonight by any means. He hasn't been that great for the last couple of years. He's been fine. They're just holding on to him because he won the cup with them. I expect the Caps to come out with a lot more jump tonight. I expect a pretty good win tonight. Pretty good effort. Way better effort than they had on Tuesday. And they were due for one of those on Tuesday, to be quite frank. They're going to bounce back tonight for sure.
Yeah, I think so too. All right, everybody. Talk to you tomorrow. Bram Show, ESPN 630, The Sports Capital.